Coming Back is a listener-supported podcast. To support the show and get exclusive access to podcast swag, giveaways, private grief hangouts, and more, head on over to patreon.com/ShelbyForsythia. Support the show for as little as $1 per month and change or cancel your support at any time. Thank you so much for listening. Grief Growers, I am also setting sail on the 2019 Bereavement Cruise. To join me and a boatload of other grieving hearts as we travel to Haiti, Jamaica, and Mexico, go to www.comingbackcruise.com, where you can sign up to receive more information on the cruise's sail dates, grief presenters, and onboard activities. I'll see you on the open seas. Hi there, and welcome to Coming Back, a podcast about coming back to life after loss. On today's show, I'm talking to Barbara J. Hopkinson, founder of A Butterfly's Journey, about the loss of her 21-year-old son, Brent, the end of her 30-year marriage, and the suicide attempt that woke her up to the power she had to choose to heal. Also on the show today, I'm reminding you to join my private Facebook group for my upcoming book, because I'll be releasing the first section of it this week. I'm Shelby Forsythia, an intuitive grief guide who speaks, writes, and teaches powerful truths on grief and loss. My mom's death in 2013 set me on the path to becoming a lifelong student of grief, and I use what I learned to equip others with the knowledge to heal and remind them that they are not alone. Because even through grief, we are growing. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coming Back. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So before I jump into the latest news about my book, Grief Growers, I want to thank all of you who joined me live or watched the replay of my Facebook coverage of the new show on grief called Sorry for Your Loss last week. I am so excited to share with you that A, the live broadcast went very well, and B, because it went very well, I have been invited back again by Legacy.com to review more episodes of Sorry for Your Loss, so I will be live next Wednesday, October 3rd at 10 a.m. Central over on Legacy.com's Facebook page. I would absolutely love if you join me again, especially if you've been keeping up with Sorry for Your Loss on Facebook Watch like I have. Click the link in the show notes to like Legacy.com's Facebook page. That way you'll be notified when I go live on October 3rd. I am so excited to keep the conversation going on a show that I think is so beautifully capturing the aftermath of sudden loss and what it's like to be a young widow. Okay, Grief Growers. So this week, I want to let you know that I am getting ready to close membership to my private Facebook group called Permission to Grieve Launch Team this Sunday, September 30th. I'm getting closer and closer to finishing my book, and the closer I get, the more I want just my hardcore team of dedicated grief growers to be the ones to proof it and have eyes on it and continue to be the ones that build feedback and constructive criticism and insight on it with me. So if you're on the fence about getting a behind-the-scenes look at my writing process or having input on this book, or if you've just been putting off answering the 3 questions that are required to join the private Facebook group Permission to Launch Team, please request to join the group and answer those questions before the end of this weekend. As a reminder, once inside the group, you'll be able to see and respond to questions and polls related to the topics I'm covering in Permission to Grieve. You'll be able to talk to other grief growers that are helping with this project as well, and you'll get to be able to keep up with my writing progress too. When the book goes live, all I'm asking you for is to write a review of the book on Amazon and to share it with people you love on 2 forms of social media. Then you'll receive a free copy of the book in both ebook and audiobook formats. You'll be able to hear it in my voice, too. This is really a project that I'm devoting my heart and soul and time to. I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, Grief Growers, is that, the top of the shows have been a little bit sparse this season because I am putting so much of my energy towards this book and this piece of work that's coming through. I know that some of you listening are so invested in it coming to life, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. If you want to be part of my exclusive launch team, again, please request to join Permission to Grieve launch team on Facebook before September 30th by following the link in the show notes or by searching Permission to Grieve launch team on Facebook. I would absolutely love to welcome you into this space. And I thank you all so much always for your continued support of what my heart is aching to produce. This podcast, the community behind it, and now, a book. Next up, I'm talking to Barbara J. Hopkinson, fellow Bereavement Cruise presenter, founder of A Butterfly's Journey, and survivor of a ton of tragic losses, including the death of her 21-year-old son. Barbara J. Hopkinson is the founder and leader of both A Butterfly's Journey, a 501c3 nonprofit, and the Compassionate Friends of Greater Newburyport, Massachusetts. She is the author of several books, a contributor and co-author for multiple Grief Diaries projects, and a certified grief recovery specialist. As a part of her work through A Butterfly's Journey, she's created portraits of loss, photo shoots that encourage open expression of grief, loss, and love. Thank you so much for joining us today on Coming Back, and I'm so excited to have you here, not only to talk about how loss has impacted your life, but the art and the creativity that has come out of it. So if you could please start us off with your loss story.
Oh, thanks. Anyway, thanks for having me, Shelby. I'm delighted to be here. And I've had quite a few losses. I guess a lot of it started with my 21-year-old died in a motorcycle accident, Brent, and he was going to have a great future, but that kind of shook my world. I also had my third son. I've got a remaining son, Brad, and then my third son, Robbie, was stillborn, and I also had a miscarriage. So I've lost 3 children, and Brent was the last of the 3 that I lost, but it really rocked my world because a year later, my 30-year marriage fell apart, and my husband left me for a younger woman. So that was pretty earth-shattering. I actually attempted suicide over that, but luckily had the time to think about it and realized I couldn't do that to my remaining son, who is now a successful chef and has given me a grandson, which I'm thrilled with. But the other kind of non-personal or non-death type losses is I have been laid off of 10-year jobs twice. I actually fell in a gym and lost the sight in my right eye, and then a few years later had to have the eye taken out, have it eviscerated. So I have a prosthetic for a right eye, and this seems like there's been a lot of things, but it's made me very strong and very resilient.
I know we were speaking before we got on the call today about how these losses have made you resilient, but I'm curious to know how all of these have shown up differently in terms of grief for you, or if they're all kind of showing up the same in terms of how you grieve, how you respond to them in your life, in terms of, how your behavior changes in the aftermath of them.
Yeah, no, I think, they're all very different. And, it's really difficult and not, I don't think, terribly useful to compare losses or people to compare pain because it's such an individual thing. But probably the one that shook my world the most was the loss of my 21-year-old son. Brent was on his way to being an Army pilot. He was out at Arizona State University and was getting engaged. And, you have a whole future in your head. We were married 30 years, his father and I, and I was looking forward to retirement and grandchildren. And then everything fell apart because first, Brent died, and that changed so much. And it's like you're being gutted like a fish when a child dies, because your primary role in life as a parent is to protect your children. So when you can't anymore, it's unbelievably devastating. And then on top of that, my husband left, our marriage fell apart. And so it was like a, kind of a 1-2 punch. And then his brother Brent died the week his brother graduated high school. So
Wow.
Brad went to college and ended up flunking out that first year because he couldn't deal with the studies and the grief. He did get back in and finish, and now he's a very talented chef that owns his own restaurant. But at the time, it just shakes your whole world. And of course, I was worried about him. So that compared to the other losses, when I lost, my third son, it was Robbie. We didn't know until the end what was going to happen. And so when he was stillborn, having to come home from the hospital and tell his brothers, who was 6 and 4, and waiting for their little brother to come home from the hospital, that he wasn't coming home, was very difficult, but in a very different way, right? And I hadn't gotten to know him or his personality yet the way I did Brent. And so it was also devastating, but just in quite a different way. And the miscarriage as well. As soon as you're expecting, you've got all these hopes and dreams, and it's very, very difficult. But it's different because you don't know the personality yet, right? You haven't had all those interactions, with them, so it feels very different. And then when my husband left, yeah, that was. It's like, you go through this, oh my God, am I going to be able to make it, live alone for the first time? And then, you go through phases of anger, and you go through, eventually work your way to forgiveness, because it's much better for you to forgive other people. And of course it was not, the divorce was not all his fault. Everything like that is always two-sided. We both contributed to it, but my son's death was a catalyst. But, it's just, there's so much complexity. And then, you really miss, I've had dogs and cats for more than 10 years, and, they died, and it's like losing, a family member in a different way. It's hard to describe the differences. They're all various levels of pain, and they hit you at different times in different ways. But I think it's so unique depending on your individual relationship with them. I know I do. I'm a certified grief recovery specialist, and I've done one-on-one and group classes, but say in my one-on-one classes, where I've done them with mothers that have lost a child at different adult child and baby children. And then I also had a pet loss class with a woman whose dog was like her baby, because that was the main thing in her life. And you can see how it can affect them in overlapping ways. It's really interesting. So it's hard to categorize.
It is, and it's hard to compare. It's hard to categorize. I guess I just have this vision of you as this person who's been totally, the word that's coming to mind is storm tossed, and just like thrown up on the boulders and in the waves, and the lightning and the crashing, and you like roll up on shore, and you're like, all right, this is what I got left to work with after all of this. And there's humor in it, but at the same time, I'm like, man, like you've had literal chunks taken out of your heart, and just intuitively, that's just the visual that's coming to me. And
it's so
the bigger
funny, because
question,
I live on the ocean, and I've climbed the jetties, and it has tossed me around.
I did not know. Well, I did not know that. That's kind of cool that clicks together that way. The bigger question that's sitting in the back of my head is after all of this, or in the midst of all of this, where does hope come from for you? Because you mentioned that you had a suicide attempt, and in my mind, that is a place of hopelessness.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering where hope comes from, not only, to allow you the ability to carry on just day to day, but to continue to work with grief and others' losses, to take it that one step further.
Yeah. And I think an awful lot of the bereaved parents that I've talked to, they may not have taken any action, but a lot of them have considered suicide because it's that bad. But for me, I think it was the combination of losing the 21-year-old son and the marriage, my other son flunking out of college, and was going to be living alone for the first time ever, and I was 51. Combination of all that, but I think a lot of times it's a trigger, right? It's a moment in time when you just feel overwhelmed and make a silly or stupid decision, and if you choose a method that you can't get out of, then I think a lot of times it happens, and it just happens, and you can't get back from it. I was literally doing the carbon monoxide thing, but that gave me time to think. And in that few minutes to think, it allowed me to say, okay, I can't do that to my remaining son. I can't put him through that. And it was a turning point for me. It allowed me to say, okay, time for you to make a choice to heal, to kick yourself in the butt and climb out of this hole one day at a time. knowing it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fast, but you can do it. And I knew I could. It really wasn't, I don't think I was depressed at the level where um, it would have stayed with me. I think it was a trigger at a moment in time, because I had gone to an event that I had a couple of friends who had lost children 6 months after mine did. And I was looking to start a support group, and we were supposed to have a meeting, and they canceled the meeting and forgot to tell me. And so I needed to be with them at that point. And when I pulled back into my garage, it felt hopeless, and it felt like, I don't know if I can take all this on at once. But just a moment in time decision that, thank God, it turned into a turning point for me. And after I survived my son's death, I really felt, okay, I am so strong. I don't think anything could take me down. So all the other stuff, including the loss of my eyesight, which was tough, but I think I've released 5 books since then. It's like it's really all in your belief system. I felt, man, after losing children, I can't think of anything else worse that could take me down. So,
can you talk about how coming back from loss is a choice? You phrase it as, I got to kick myself in the butt and do something about it. But I came to this place as well where I'm like, am I going to keep doing this, or am I going to choose to make my life look different than it does now?
Yeah, I used to have kind of a tagline that said, choose to heal, or finding a new normal, things like that. I do think you do have to make a choice to heal, because I think it's very easy, especially in there's so much these days, so many opioid deaths, so many suicides, so much that's really hard. And the people it leaves behind, they rack themselves with, why didn't I see that coming? And all kinds of guilt and anger and different things. And you can drown in that anger and that regret. But if you think about it, that's not what our loved ones want. They made a choice that wasn't a good one at the time, but they don't want us to be drowning in it, or to wallow in it, or to be stuck in it like that. They want us to be able to try to heal. And it's not one thing. I mean, I think you can try all different things. I was in the corporate world for 30 years, including 10 years at IBM. And we didn't talk about spirituality or any of that kind of stuff, right? Everything was all business. So when my son died, I actually told my boss, who was kind of high pressure, I wanted to change my job, and he was trying to prevent it. And I said, look, you don't have any power over me anymore, because the worst thing that could happen to me has. So I don't care about this stuff anymore. You need to give me some space, or I'm out of here. And, and just, it's just perspective. And it's making a choice that, okay, I can do this. I know it's going to be tough. I also have to keep an open mind. I tried all kinds of things like energy healing and meditation and journaling. I mean, all that stuff, it all worked, in its own way. It usually is, I tell everybody, try at least a half a dozen things you've never tried before. And then probably 3 of them might help a little bit, and keep doing those, and then just keep searching for things, because you don't know. You don't know if you haven't tried it, because grief is very unique, and it's a new situation. So why not keep an open mind,
What surprised you the most about grief?
How debilitating it was. After my 21-year-old died, I don't think I could read or listen to music for 3 months. And it was very difficult to get out of bed in the morning and do anything. It's like you force yourself, but you're in shock those first couple of weeks to get you through the wake and funeral. And, everybody's around and there's a lot of support, but then it starts to wane, after the funeral. And then you have to get up and you have to really face it, and it starts to sink in. And in my case, the first low point for me was about 4 months after my son died, when it hit raw reality. I mean, I didn't know what to do. And it was, I can remember just sitting and sobbing on the beach. And I had a good friend with me who actually knew a medium. And this medium had already retired, but she called her and asked her if she'd talk to me. And I had never done anything like that. But it's like, okay, again, I got to try it. And that was probably one of the things that helped me the most. She was very genuine and knew all kinds of stuff that she'd have no way of knowing. And that gave me hope. I was on a mission, on a journey to find out if my son's spirit continued. And I have since become absolutely convinced that all of our loved ones' spirits continue. So, and I've gotten signs, and actually that's one of my upcoming books is about really credible signs. But it gives you hope, stuff like that, so you can eventually get to the point where if you think of your loved one's life as a gift to you and not just a loss, and think really focus on the positive memories and all the good times you had, it just gives you a much better way to remember them and look at them and say, now when I think of any of them, but especially Brent or even my husband, Jim, he just died almost 9 months ago. I really think about all the fun things we did together, and I know that their spirit continues and they're still with me. I just can't physically see them and touch them. I have to kind of pretend that they're on the other side of the world or something. And
Yeah. Sometimes I have this with my mom too. I'm like, sometimes I still just think she's on a really long trip.
Yeah, right.
She's still just somewhere across the world and her cell phone's disconnected. And,
right.
I can't.
Yeah, it's okay to think of it like that. Yeah. But, you know that they would want you to feel better and to heal and, to just, work your way through it. Right. So do it for yourself, do it for them, do it for the rest of your family and friends, whatever. But I try not to get stuck in it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always get this this visual. I put my mind's eye on the podcast all the time, which is so funny because you can just hear my voice. Nobody can ever see what I'm thinking. But I have this visual as well that I use a lot in the aftermath of loss, where you're like sitting down alone in the dark and you have like 18 hands and they're all just grasping for something, for hope, for information, for a connection, like through a medium, or try this on, see if it works, the Reiki, the experimentation of it all. And I really do think that's so important, and it's something that's come through on multiple interviews here on Coming Back, is like, who cares if it sounds crazy? Just try it on and see if it works. If it doesn't, move on. I mean, you're like, the craziest things already happened. The worst has already happened. So like, how could it could get weirder, but it's not going to get any worse. Is kind of the mentality.
It's funny because what I did is I wrote, my first book was a memoir called The Butterfly's Journey, Healing Grief After the Loss of a Child. And the first part of it is just kind of that 2-week experience from phone call to funeral. But then the second part of it is a summary after 10 years of how I recovered in the spiritual journey I went on and all the different things I tried. And the 3 most important points I felt at the end of that, with a 10-year perspective, was number 1, you have to keep an open mind, but you have to, and try new things, but you have to trust your own intuition. Everybody's got advice. They know nothing about your grief and your loss because it's unique to your relationship and your personality and how you heal. So don't take to heart everybody's advice. Just trust your own gut and open it. So that's really just all in one point, because it's all about open mind and keeping an open mind and stuff. The second is it's all about the love. And the second is helping others helps you heal. So any kind of focus you can, it doesn't have to be about your loved one or about grief. It can be any cause or anything that you like, but reaching out and helping somebody else or others in general is so healing. It's unbelievable. And then the third area is it's all about the love. So if you can focus on the love you had with that loved one as opposed to the pain and the loss, it'll save you. It really makes you.
And tell me, which book is this from again for our grief growers that want to pick that up?
It's a Butterfly's Journey. A
Butterfly's Journey.
Right, and it's got a subtitle of Healing Grief After the Loss of a Child.
Thank you. I'm curious now to know how you went from this disastrous, chunks coming out of your heart grief to, I'm going to write a book about this and I'm going to have multiple businesses dedicated to helping others come out of similar griefs.
Yeah, I think instinctually I knew that helping others would help me heal. So the first thing I did was reach out and start a chapter of the Compassionate Friends, which is a support group for families that have lost a child, grandchild, or sibling, any age, any cause. So I've had that. I started it in 2003. I've had it for 15 years, and that's a local support group in north of Boston, northeast Massachusetts. And but after a while, and as I was healing, I just wanted to do more. So I started working on the book, and that took quite a while. And eventually I released that. And, a while later, I retired from the corporate world and IBM and said, still yet, I felt now that I have some more time, I'm very action oriented. I'm not, I am. I'm a doer as opposed to a kind of a watcher. And so I went and started a butterfly's journey and went and got a 501c3, and I went and got certified in grief recovery method. And I feel better when I'm taking action to do something. It helps me as well as helping, equips me to help others. And then so it was confusing, but the nonprofit is called the Butterfly's Journey as well. And then we do these grief recovery method classes, over the phone or in person. And we have an online resource center, which is free. But the thing that I've been really dedicated to over the last couple of years is called Portraits of Loss. And we actually go to events and take we bring a photographer and set up a photo booth with professional lights and everything, and encourage people to express themselves by writing on their skin with magic marker, the washable magic marker. And they get to express anything about their grief, their love, their loss, just to be able, it's a very cathartic process. And then we take the photos and edit them and send them to them so that then they're a catalyst for them to talk about their grief, which we don't do much in this country. So I'm really trying to encourage open expression of grief, loss, and love through these photo shoots. So we've done them all over the country, and I'm in the process of taking them international and multilingual.
I've seen these photo shoots and not to play favorites, but it's my favorite thing that you do is the portraits of loss. And I think because it's so striking, and you don't have to do, I mean, granted, as humans, we're visual creatures, and so we see first and we kind of absorb, or we read second. So the less words we have to read and the more pictures we can look at, it just brings so much more impact to a work. And to have these words physically written on bodies is like, I am carrying this. This is a part of me, as opposed to I'm putting this on a piece of paper, which is a separate entity from my body.
Good observation.
Which is so cool. And I love it. And I'm kind of wondering if you have some cool, or remarkable, takeaway stories from how this has changed you, both as the creator of Portraits of Loss and Butterfly's Journey, and as a leader of Compassionate Friends, but also as people have, participated in these projects, like how it's impacted them in their loss as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I love, I could do the photographs myself, but I purposely don't, because I love talking to the people and understanding about their loss, and then helping them decide what are they going to say and how are they going to present it. So the stories I hear, they're unbelievable. I've got one grandmother she came to my support group first as she lost her 4-year-old grandson to cerebral palsy. And then his mother had a really tough time and went through some overdoses that they brought her back from, but then she committed suicide. And so this poor woman lost her grandson and his mother, her daughter. And, her message was, grief is the price of love. And then, there's another mother who lost her son to overdose suddenly. It was just such a surprise to her. And her message on her arms was, no blame, no shame, just love. There's so many things. It's like, there's another woman who was a beautiful Black woman, and she had some striking colors on, and she just had on her hands, it's okay. It's like, I'm okay. It's okay. There's such a wide variety. Sometimes people just put their loved one's name and a heart, or they might have a phrase. I never, ever tell them what to write. I always just encourage them with questions. And we always have a slideshow, like on an iPad or something, that flips through examples. And we do it with singles or couples or groups. sometimes we have a whole family. There was a whole family, and their daughter Sabrina had died. So they had a whole phrase, and they had, one word on each person's arm, but there were maybe 6 people in the photo. It's so interesting. And then we had a woman that came in, and she and her husband had lost their daughter. And so, but she had this beautiful Dalmatian service dog with her. And I said, oh, can I, we took the picture with her and her husband and then her. And I said, can I take a picture with your dog? And we did that, and it was beautiful. And I said, can I take a picture with just the dog? And she put her daughter's photo hanging from the dog's collar. And it's just, you look at it and it just melts. It's beautiful, yeah, Dalmatian, with this, with this beautiful young woman's picture on it. So they tell such a story, but God, one woman, we were at Compassionate Friends National Conference where they do a lot of times these pictures on buttons, and she had 3 buttons. And I asked her, my God, did you lose 3? And she said, yeah, my husband shot my 3 children and then shot himself.
Oh my God.
So you hear stuff like that and you just, can I hug you? So I like the part of being able to interact with them, and then, I have we get a media release with their email, so we can email them the resulting photos and things. But yeah, some of the stories would blow your mind.
Absolutely. Like, no kidding. I'm looking at some of them now as we're speaking, and they're just they're so different, and yet they're all grief. They're all the same. And for our grief growers that are joining us on the Bereavement Cruise, this is the workshop that you'll be teaching, or the event that you'll be hosting on the boat.
Yeah. So there's 2 things on the boat. I am going to do a photo shoot. So we'll do a photo shoot on the boat. My staff photographer, Patty Ray Miliotis, will join us, and we'll have a whole setup with a backdrop and lights, and we'll do photos for anybody who would like them. And separately, I'm going to do a workshop on resilience. Again, because I think I've survived a lot of stuff, and I really feel whole and happy and healthy. And I focus on the love of all the people, and have been able to get past other kinds of losses. And it's okay. Life goes on, and life can be good again. So I just want to illustrate that for people.
What's the looking for words on this one, but I feel like resilience right now is a buzzword in the United States, kind of all over the world. Actually, we're looking a lot at resilience and how to make people, but kids, be able to bounce back, to come back faster, better, with more hope than they used to. And I guess, how in your work do you prevent it from being like, we need to be strong? Because I think there's this myth of, we need to be strong immediately after loss happens. But then a lot of people confuse that with, what resilience looks like. So I guess determining the difference between the two in your work.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about this in this context before, but my gut reaction is to say resilience is not being strong or avoidance of being strong. Resilience is coming back from, whatever blow, you suffered, and whatever loss you suffered. So it's not about how fast or even how much. It's more about, can I take the hit and get knocked down, and can I crawl can I get back up again, and can I continue? And even if it's only a little bit at a time, or one step in a staircase at a time, am I at least looking to get some form of a new normal, something. I mean, it's not like you're ever gonna, your loss is not going to go away, or grief totally, but you certainly can be happy again, and be resilient to say, okay, that happened. Like, I lost my sight. Yeah, that was a blow for a while, and then I learned to function without it. It took a while, but I think it's more about just trying to, almost like in your coming back and your, your title of your work and your show. It's more about taking the blow, but not letting it keep you down.
Mm.
Keep, just being able to find some way to get back to the surface and get a breath of air. And you may sink a few times again, but eventually you come up and stay up.
That's such a great way to describe it. And I have one more question before we let people know where we can find you. And that is, what is the butterfly's journey and where did that symbolism come from for you?
Well, to me, a butterfly is a symbol of transition. I think it's an international symbol of transition. Most grief organizations seem to have some kind of butterfly in their midst because it's so illustrative, going from a caterpillar, into a pupa, and going from this ugly little creature into this magnificent, beautiful, colorful creature is such a symbol of transition in any way. And I think of it as indicative or representative of the transition that our children or our loved ones or our pets went from a physical life to a spiritual life. And it's our transition from having a life with them to continuing without them, right? There's a big transition on both sides, and it represents that to me. And so I was considering that, I think, in the title, and I had gone, one of the mediums that I went to a medium, and she kind of said, "No, I think a butterfly's journey," because I don't know, I had it slightly different. I forget what it was, but anyway. And so the other story, I got to tell you one quick story about the actual monarch butterfly that's part of my logo. This is so about a month after my son died. My 21-year-old son, Brent, died. My other son and a friend of his were at my house, and a big, beautiful orange and black monarch butterfly showed up on the deck, but it showed up and stayed there. And my son's friend saw it, and he went out, and it allowed him to pick it up and bring it in the house. And it allowed us to actually hand it between the three of us and take pictures. And it never tried to get away. It went on for half an hour.
Gosh.
It never, ever tried to get away. And then finally, it's like, what do we do with it? Well, so you got to put it back outside. And sometimes it's got to take off. So he put it back out on the deck, and eventually it flew away. But the whole thing, and every time we just look at it, and I'd blow lightly on its wings, and it would open its wings and stay flat for a minute so I could take a picture.
The most photogenic butterfly.
Come back up. Honest to God. So that butterfly is the butterfly that's in, when I have my logo, you'll see it, A Butterfly's Journey. That's the butterfly. It's the butterfly that showed up a month after my older son died.
Wow. And you're not the first person to mention butterflies on this show, but I always like to know where people's names and their roots of the stories come from. Absolutely.
So I've been, a couple of people said, "Oh no, you should change your logo or this or that." I said, "Yeah, no, I'm not giving up that butterfly."
You're like, "No, that is way too important." Too much meaning behind that guy. Well, before we hop off for the day, let us know where people can find your Compassionate Friends chapter in Boston, but also A Butterfly's Journey, both the book and the business, and where they can look at these portraits of loss that you've taken as well.
Oh, thank you. Sure. So, Compassionate Friends again is a it's the Compassionate Friends of Greater Newburyport, Mass, and the website is tcfnewburyport.org. So that's tcfnewburyport.org. And we have our meetings fourth Mondays for anybody kind of within driving distance of that. And then the nonprofit, abutterfliesjourney.org. So that's it's possessive, not plural. So it's abutterflysjourney.org. The phone number for that, or can reach for either, is 617 410-6309, or info@abutterfliesjourney.org is the email. And then a Portraits of Loss. So there is a photo gallery on that, and on the Butterfly's Journey, it has info. It's got the free resource center, and it's got information about the grief recovery programs, etc. But the Portraits of Loss also has its own site, and these both have their own Facebook and Instagram and pages and their own site, and that's portraitsofloss.org. And we're coming out with, I'm now partnering with Linda Fell of Grief Diaries, the founder of the anthology series Grief Diaries, and we're doing a book currently named Faces of Grief, with some of these photos, and that will be coming out very soon.
Oh, that's so exciting. And I know that Linda Fell's coming on the Bereavement Cruise too, so it's just going to be one big Bereavement Cruise collaboration.
Yeah, it's great. I've met so many wonderful people in working, with the grief experts on a national level. And we just did a photo shoot for Parkland, Florida after the school shooting.
Yeah.
There was a Day of Hope hosted by Bobby Rissaniti. And we went down and did that. And I think, there's plans to be doing things to help, these poor people that go through this sudden, terrible loss.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for all the work that you're doing and so many places that you are. You just feel so present in so many different types of grief, both because you've experienced them and because you work with them and continue to work with them. So it's just been a joy to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Shelby. It's nice talking to you.
So that's all for this episode of Coming Back. Thank you so much to Barbara J. Hopkinson for sharing your multiple losses with us and for reminding us that coming back isn't always an easy choice, but it's a choice we are all capable of making. Barbara came back by seeing a medium and by supporting other grievers through a butterfly's journey and the compassionate friends. You can find a link to Barbara's website in the show notes. Join me in my private Facebook group Permission to Grieve Launch Team to receive a free copy of my upcoming book and provide your insight and wisdom to this valuable heart project. Membership closes this Sunday, September 30th. Come sail with me and your fellow grief growers on the 2019 Bereavement Cruise by requesting more information at comingbackcruise.com. We are less than 6 months away now. If this show has changed the way you see grief and loss, go to patreon.com/ShelbyForsythia, where you can pledge to support the show for as little as $1 per month and get some very cool podcast rewards for doing so. If you liked what you heard today, you can also support the show by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and by telling a friend about Coming Back, because you never know what someone you love is going through. Thank you to Mr. Eddie Goldstein, who composed our theme music. You can find me on Facebook at Shelby Forsythia Intuitive Grief Guide, Instagram at Grief Guide Shelby Forsythia, or simply shelbyforsythia.com. If you'd like to leave a question or a comment for a future show, leave a voicemail or text 312-725-3043 or email me at shelby@shelbyforsythia.com. As always, my dear grief growers, it was beautiful sharing this space and time with you today. I see you. I am proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world, and I love you, because even through grief, we are growing.